with Nathan Chang, together you are the founders of Vitalism. What is the founding story of Vitalism? Like, how did you guys get together and came up with the idea to build this community?
Yeah, so Nathan and I first connected in March of 21. I was looking to meet people who were concerned about death and aging, and I quickly found Nathan online. It may have been somebody recommending his newsletter or just like running into one of his tweets. And I followed him and I pinged him cold, and we hopped on a Zoom within 24 hours and discussed kind of our respective, perspectives about the longevity space and challenge. And that kicked off basically a year and a half where we were collaboratively struggling with the situation and what to do about it. And what I mean by situation is that it seemed that we were hardly making any progress, and that if nothing changed, we were pretty much as good as dead. And so, when we looked at that, we really kind of like surveyed the different initiatives in longevity on the scientific front and reached the common conclusion that none of them were promising enough to give us enough confidence that we could just like sit back and everything would be fine. In fact, on the contrary, it felt like there was no promise at all. And it was very likely that all these efforts would fail. And so when you look at that, could be a source of dejection, or it could be a reason to kind of stop thinking about it or lean into some sort of hopium or copium. But I guess both Nathan and I are very pragmatic. And so we tried to think, well, okay, what is the highest leverage thing we could do to change this situation? And the first principles, most self-evident thing is that we're not really trying to solve aging with science and technology. We meaning humanity, right? If you think about all of our resources, the community, we're all dying of aging. All of our loved ones are dying of aging. Sucks. And if you look at how we allocate resources in society, we basically pretend that that's not happening. So we do that in two ways. On the one hand, we say, well, what's more important is, defense spending or some subsidy for an agricultural lobby or you name it, or subsidizing pharma or all sorts of things like that. So that's horrible. But, some of these things might make sense, but the ratio is completely skewed in a nonsensical way. And then the other side of it is just that we have this status quo where by inertia, society says we're doing our best in the way that we spend our money on quote unquote healthcare, really sick care, and on aging. And therefore, there's no point in doing anything differently. Actually, this is the best we can do. And so when we saw that, we would say, well, okay, so there are a couple of hypotheses that stand at the base of this, right? You're kind of assuming, well, waiting for people to get sick and then trying to solve some late stage pathology, as we do with cancer, heart disease, dementia, diabetes, and more, is the current quote unquote state of the art. So you could say that humanity is actually trying very hard to keep people alive and to extend lifespans. Right now, it is actually doing that. It's just doing it in a very ridiculous way. So that's where we spend all our money. And so you could say, oh, humanity doesn't care about extending lifespans. That's not really true. Humanity really does care about extending lifespans in the revealed preference. Even though people on the street might say, oh, I'm fine with dying at 80. The revealed preference of society is to spend like $1 trillion a year to try to extend lifespans. Except the way we do that is in the context of pathology, where the body is completely broken. So really what we're saying is that our critique is that our resource allocation is faulty, not because we're not trying hard to fight against aging and death. It's that the way we're trying is wrong. And if we want to try hard in an effective way, we need to solve the root cause problem. And the root cause problem of death is aging. And to solve aging, you can't just look at a late state pathology. The chances of solving aging are just like infinitesimally small if you do that, in our opinion. And so then you're basically saying, well, you do need a big resource allocation in society that moves from this mental model of we're doing the best we can do with pathologies to we're going to think long term and try to solve things at the root. And so if you think about a massive reallocation of resources in that way, it really takes a kind of shift in influence in power dynamics in society, right? Because the current state is not a result of like one agent or one dictator or one lawmaker. It's this entire very complex system where pharma has a role, patient groups have a role, lawmakers have a role, legacy institutions have a role, agencies that were given a mandate that was relevant for 100 years ago have a role. And in combination, even if every stakeholder is trying to be ethical, which sometimes they're not, but let's even imagine they are, you would have this very negative outcome. And so that led us to think, all right, well, we need a kind of revolution. Like when have so many things changed? Typically, it's in a state of real disruption to the fabric of culture, the politic, and society. And so it typically happens in these kind of religious or political revolutions. And that's what made us come up with Vitalism, because we felt that we need a unifying ideology and a name that could coordinate the people who want to see this revolution and then help us work collaboratively to drive the revolution forward.